Welcome to the first lecture on theories relevant to gender and communication. I'm going to take some time to try to break down most or many of the main theories, as well as some that are related to it that maybe the book doesn't explore as much, that you get from Chapter 2. I'll be doing much of this here today for the asynchronous presentation, and we'll finish up with the last portion on Wednesday during the synchronous live presentation. So, there are three categories of theories. They are biological, psychological, and critical cultural. The first we're going to look at, because we're going to go in that order, is the biological. So we get these biological theories and perspectives, and when you hear much discussion of gender in the popular press, they go back to rely on this a lot. And if you think about the discussion we had in our live class on Wednesday, that would have been September 2nd. You think about the discussion we had in the way in which people look for the truth within the body, right? So these biological perspectives have been very important to people, and a lot of times in the popular press you see it come up a lot. So the great caution that we have about biological perspectives is biological determinism. Your book discusses this. I won't say much about it, but basically that our biology is our destiny, and that's what we're trapped with. And really going back to our discussion in class about notion of normal and being normative, the concern there about whenever people are trying to chase out or chase down, find, track down, pin down, which, by the way, those are all metaphors about grabbing and controlling, right? Something's going free, right? What is naturally male, what's naturally female? You see how that can be used then as a cudgel, as a way to punish and to hurt those who then don't do what they should be doing, right? So you're a man, but you like to do X. Well, there's clearly something wrong with you, right? And we can say that biologically, right? Because what we do then is we say we pathologize. Right? We make what somebody's doing outside the norms, we make it an illness, we pathologize it. So that's the great caution anytime you're doing biological studies is biological determinism. That's part of why I don't get into it a whole lot. The other thing is, in the great debate on nature versus nurture, which, right, are we who we are, both gender as well as, just personality and so forth, or we are who we are because of our biology, our genes, our chromosomes, right? Or is it because of the influence of the environment we were in, right? That's nature versus nurture. And I will tell you just personally, so you don't know this for the exam, obviously, personally, and I want to say this very plainly, I don't really care. It's nothing that has been unimportant, and I'm not going to talk about it here. You need to understand these theories. I say that I don't care because what I mean is that whatever, as a parent, whatever my child is that they want to wear, whether it's sort of gender normative for their sex or not, I don't care why it is they want to do that. If they want to do it, then fine. If I want to do certain things that are seen as masculine, other things that are seen as being very feminine, I just leave me alone and let me do it already. That's where I'm coming from. And I'm not trying to dismiss the theory and study of this at all. I think actually theory and study of these topics are very important. I'm just saying at the end of the day, please don't use these theories to judge who's normal, who's not, and why are you, or the reason you're doing that is, as opposed to just letting people be who they are. But we can still talk about where we think this comes from. I think that we can do both those. Look at the theory and care about and respect it, but also care about and respect individuals for the choices they make for themselves and to, respect those. Right? And the book discusses stereotype threat. I'm not going to get into it here, but just to emphasize, that's one of the cautions that comes from biological determinism then, as we think about expectations for people. It applies, by the way, to gender as well as we say with race and ethnicity. About stereotype threat. So make sure you're looking at that, and if you have any questions, you bring those up. Right. Don't worry, I'm not quite done with biology just yet. What we're going to say about biological perspectives is that when you have this hormone-centered perspective, we do have hormones in our body, varying degrees. Both men and women do actually have in their body estrogen and testosterone, and in different levels. Hormones do affect us, right? And actually, it turns out that as men's testosterone level drops, that seems to be when they get more angry and aggressive, not when they have more of it, which is probably more about hormonal balance perhaps than anything else, right? So hormones do affect us, right? They can affect mood. They can affect, we see how they can affect sexual desire, right? Right, for those who do otherwise experience sexual desire, we see, sex drive, libido, if you will. So hormones can affect us, absolutely, but they don't define us. Individuals are still responsible for their choices, right? So then it is not natural that men do, and I've heard this before, there's lots of jokes about prison rape, right? So the jokes about, or this thinking that men will sexually assault other people because they just have to, and it's just sort of their biology, their hormones, or their destiny, right? And so that then becomes used as a way to validate an unchecked male sex drive, right? So hormones is an example of that. They affect us, but they certainly don't define us. And one of the important things we learn about hormones and brain development has to do with this notion of brain plasticity. And so the study, and I think your book no longer mentions it, it's a study that came out a long time ago. So let's back up. When I was in college, back when we didn't have chalkboards, we just wrote on the back of shovels with a piece of coal. I'm kidding. When I was in college, though, I remember a professor. She actually was a professor of World Civ, and she was saying there had been a study, and it found that when women are shown a map and they're doing the sort of neural brain scans, and just a portion of her brain lights up, but when they show men a map, a larger and greater portion of their brain lights up. And it was like the sea, men and women were sort of, different people, our brains do different things. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess. We'll jump to not actually too long later, and there was a study done related specifically to maps. There is the, Black Hat or Black Cab Company of London, where the drivers are known for knowing the city streets very well. So he wants to correct me on this because I've never been to London myself. But that's my understanding. They know them very well. And they did some analysis, right, of the drivers, right, in this company. And they found that, yeah, the portion of their brain that lights up when reading, when talking about map and navigation, is larger than people who don't have this job. Well, this is actually a demonstration of that by doing the job, you develop your brain in those ways. And if you say, well, maybe that's why they do so well in that job, is because their brain's that way. Well, maybe they're had other experience with it, because that is but one example of others we find in which people who have had experiences with doing certain sorts of tasks, their brain, the area of their brain that functions to perform that task, does in fact grow, right? As you say more, you get better at doing it. Yeah, more of your brain is doing it. That's a real thing. So this brain or plasticity has to do with the fact that our brain is not concrete. It's set, it's here, and that's it. But the idea of its plastic is, we're talking about the plasticity. We're talking about the mold and malleability of something to change its shape, right? Because think about plastic, right? The beauty of plastic is that they just take it and they put it into basically pour and blast it into a form. Okay, I don't know my physics for anything, but they put it in a form, right? And it's these molded plastics, right? So the brain also, it does change based on the exposures. That's been one of the problems. And I have to tell you as well that when we do some of the stuff on research and the research on hormones and so forth, they've had a number of issues with it. They used to find that the runners who crossed the finish line first in a race had higher testosterone levels than those who came after. It said, you see, that's what winners have. Well, before they run the race, they have similar testosterone levels. Depression, right, disappointment, drives down testosterone levels. Excitement raises it. They found men who were stay-at-home parents had lower testosterone levels than men who weren't. They also found that, again, in the mornings at the same levels, by the end of the day, the men who were stay-at-home parents were freaking worn out! And fatigue also lowers testosterone levels. So again, some of these studies on hormones, these biological things, there's so many social factors, be it hormone levels, be it brain, that often play into the mix. And so it's hard to really look at biology as having the answers for us. It may have some interesting facts, but it doesn't seem necessarily have really the answers for us. But those are the biological perspectives, and more than anything, some of the biological cautions.